Have you ever looked at someone and thought, if he doesn't care anymore, then why does he still keep showing up in my life? Why does he still watch from a distance? Why does he remember the smallest details? Why does he act like you're nothing one day, but somehow can't completely let you go the next? Here's what most people never understand. A man can train his face to look cold. He can control his words. He can pretend he's moved on. But controlling his heart, that's a completely different battle. Some men don't stop loving you. They simply stop showing it because they're fighting a war inside themselves. Pride tells them to stay away. Fear tells them they'll get hurt again. Ego whispers that reaching out first makes them weak. So they build walls so high that even the woman they still love can't see what's happening behind them. Don't confuse silence with indifference. Sometimes silence is the loudest confession a man will ever make. A man who truly stopped caring doesn't struggle. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't keep looking back. He simply keeps walking. But when his heart still belongs to you, every step away feels heavier than the last. That's why his actions become confusing. One moment he's distant. The next moment he's checking your social media. One day he ignores your message. The next day he's the first person to view your story. He's trying to convince himself that he's over you while secretly hoping you'll notice he's still there. You see, people often believe love always looks warm. They imagine affection is obvious. They think if someone loves you, they'll constantly call, text, and chase you. Life doesn't always work that way, especially with men who have been disappointed before. A wounded heart doesn't always run toward love. Sometimes it runs away from it. That's why the coldest man in the room may actually be carrying the warmest feelings inside. He's protecting something, and what he's protecting isn't his happiness. It's his pain. Every relationship leaves fingerprints on the heart. Some disappear. Others stay forever. When you've truly touched a man's soul, your memory doesn't simply vanish because time passes. He may force himself to move on. He may fill his schedule. He may laugh with friends. He may even convince everyone around him that he's happier without you. But late at night, when nobody is watching, that's when honesty quietly returns, because the heart speaks the loudest in silence. He starts remembering your conversations, the way you smiled when you were trying not to laugh, the little habits that used to annoy him but now somehow make him smile. Suddenly, the things he once took for granted become the things he misses the most. Regret has a strange way of arriving after pride has already done the damage. Most men don't realize what they had while they still have it. They realize it after the silence becomes permanent. That's when cold behavior begins to reveal something deeper. He becomes curious about your life without asking directly. He asks mutual friends how you're doing. He accidentally likes an old photo. He watches without speaking. He listens without admitting it. Why? Because distance doesn't erase emotional investment. If his heart has truly disconnected, he won't need updates. He won't wonder if you're smiling. He won't care who you're spending time with. His mind will be occupied by new priorities. But when the heart is still attached, curiosity never completely dies. Love leaves unanswered questions. Is she happy? Does she miss me? Has she found someone else? Does she still think about me? Those questions don't come from a man who feels nothing. They come from someone pretending he doesn't feel everything. This is why emotional maturity is so important. Too many women assume cold behavior means rejection. Sometimes it does. But sometimes it's simply emotional confusion, wearing a mask. Not every man knows how to communicate pain. Some were raised believing vulnerability makes them weak. Some learn that showing emotion leads to disappointment. Some carry wounds from relationships long before they ever met you. Instead of saying, I'm scared, they become distant. Instead of saying, I still love you, they become quiet. Instead of saying, I don't know how to fix this, they disappear. It's not because the feelings disappeared. It's because they don't know how to express feelings they were never taught to understand. And here's something you should never forget. The louder a man's ego becomes, the quieter his heart often feels. Pride is a poor translator of love. It changes "I miss you" into silence. It changes "please don't leave" into coldness. It changes "I'm afraid of losing you" into emotional distance. That's why judging only what you see can sometimes lead you to the wrong conclusion. Real strength isn't chasing someone who keeps running. Real strength is recognizing your own value while allowing people the space to fight their own battles. You cannot heal someone who refuses to face themselves. You cannot force someone to communicate before they're emotionally ready. And you should never reduce your worth just to receive the attention someone is unwilling to give freely. Ironically, the moment you stop chasing is often the moment they begin to feel the weight of your absence, because presence is often appreciated only after it's gone. When you constantly explain yourself, constantly text first, constantly seek reassurance, you're making it easier for someone to overlook your value. But when your silence replaces your effort, everything changes. Now they're left alone with their own thoughts. Now they have to feel the emptiness they were avoiding. Now they have no distractions from the truth. And truth has a powerful way of breaking through even the coldest heart. Sometimes a man doesn't realize you were his peace until life becomes noisy without you. Sometimes he doesn't recognize your loyalty until he's surrounded by temporary people. Sometimes he doesn't understand your value until he searches for you and everyone else and never finds you. That's when the heart begins speaking louder than pride. And no matter how cold he appears on the outside, the battle inside becomes impossible to ignore. Sometimes the greatest mistake people make is believing that emotions disappear simply because they aren't being expressed. They don't. Real feelings don't vanish overnight. They settle into the quiet corners of the heart, waiting for the moments when distractions fade away. That's why a man who acts cold can still carry your name in his thoughts every single day without ever saying a word. Understand something important. A man can ignore your messages. He can avoid your calls. He can even convince himself that staying away is the right decision. But if his heart still belongs to you, there will always be moments when your absence becomes impossible to escape. It happens in ordinary places. A familiar song comes on. He drives past a restaurant where the two of you once laughed until closing time. He hears someone say a phrase you used all the time. Suddenly, memories arrive without permission. That's the thing about genuine connection. It leaves traces everywhere. People often underestimate the power of emotional imprinting. When someone truly becomes part of your life, they influence the way you see the world. You don't just remember the person, you remember how life felt when they were beside you. That's why replacing a real connection isn't as simple as finding someone new. Many men try, they throw themselves into work, they spend more time with friends, they chase excitement. Some even jump into another relationship before they've healed. But temporary distractions can never replace permanent lessons. The heart has a way of exposing unfinished business. No matter how busy he becomes, there will always be quiet moments when the truth catches up with him. He starts asking himself questions he avoided before. What if I handled things differently? What if I let my pride destroy something valuable? What if she was the one person who truly understood me? These questions don't come from weakness. They come from honesty. And honesty has a way of arriving long after the argument is ended. One of the biggest misunderstandings about men is that people expect them to process emotions immediately. Many don't. While women often work through emotions by talking, reflecting, and expressing them, many men bury theirs under responsibility, routine, and distraction. They don't always realize what they've lost until enough time has passed for clarity to replace emotion. By then, the silence feels different. At first, silence feels like freedom. Later, it feels like loneliness. Eventually, it feels like regret. That's why time can completely change the way a man sees someone he once took for granted. Distance has a strange effect. It removes the small annoyances that once seemed so important. The arguments become less significant. The flaws become easier to accept. What remains are the moments that mattered most. He remembers how safe he felt around you. He remembers your encouragement when no one else believed in him. He remembers the conversations that lasted for hours without either of you checking the time. He remembers the peace that didn't seem special until it disappeared. Peace is one of the rarest things a person can find. Many people confuse excitement with love. Excitement fades. Peace remains. A woman who brings peace into a man's life leaves a mark that is difficult to erase. That's why even when he acts cold, he may secretly compare everyone else to you. Not because he's trying to, because his heart naturally measures every new experience against the connection that once made him feel understood. He may smile with someone else. He may spend time with someone new. But deep inside, he's still asking himself one question. Does this feel like what I had before? And if the answer is no, the emptiness becomes even more obvious. Here's something many people never realize: ego is loud. Love is quiet. Ego demands attention. Love waits patiently. Ego says, don't text her first. Love whispers, I wonder if she's okay. Ego says, she'll come back. Love quietly worries that she never will. The battle between ego and love is one of the hardest battles a man will ever face. Sometimes ego wins for weeks, sometimes for months. But hearts don't follow the rules that pride creates. Eventually, emotions begin breaking through the cracks. He checks your profile one more time. He rereads old conversations. He starts wondering whether you still think about him. He imagines what he would say if he saw you again. He creates conversations in his mind that never actually happen. Why? Because unfinished emotions rarely stay silent forever. But here's where many women make a mistake. The moment they notice these small signs, they immediately start chasing. They reach out first. They begin explaining. They start trying to convince him to come back. And without realizing it, they interrupt the very process that was making him reflect. Sometimes your silence teaches lessons your words never could. When you stop trying to prove your value, people are forced to discover it on their own. That's real confidence. Confidence doesn't beg. Confidence doesn't panic. Confidence doesn't lose itself trying to be chosen. It understands something powerful. The right people don't need endless convincing. Your value doesn't increase because someone finally notices it. Your value has always been there. Sometimes people simply need distance to recognize what they overlooked. That recognition cannot be forced. It has to happen naturally. When it does, it changes everything. A man who once believed he could easily replace you suddenly realizes he can't replace the way you made him feel. That's the difference. People can replace faces. They cannot replace genuine emotional experiences. The woman who inspired him to become better. The woman who believed in him when life became difficult. The woman who challenged him to grow instead of staying comfortable. Those memories don't disappear because he acts cold. In fact, sometimes the coldness is proof that he's fighting feelings he doesn't fully understand. If he truly felt nothing, life would continue normally. There would be no internal conflict, no hesitation, no second guessing, no wondering what could have been. Indifference is simple. Love is complicated. That's why the opposite of love isn't always hate. Sometimes it's pretending. Pretending you're fine. Pretending you're over it. Pretending you don't care. Pretending their name doesn't still echo somewhere in your mind, but pretending is exhausting. Eventually, the truth becomes heavier than the mask. And when that happens, people begin making choices they never expected themselves to make. Some apologize. Some reach out. some simply watch from afar because fear still controls them. Not every man who loves you knows how to return. Not every heart finds the courage to speak. And that's why your responsibility isn't to wait forever. Your responsibility is to keep becoming the best version of yourself. Keep growing, keep healing, keep building a life that doesn't depend on someone else's decision. Because the strongest kind of love is never built on desperation. It's built on two complete people choosing each other freely. And here's the beautiful part. When you focus on becoming stronger instead of becoming available, something shifts. Your energy changes. Your confidence grows. Your peace becomes visible. And suddenly, the same man who acted cold begins seeing you through different eyes. Not because you begged him to, because your absence gave him something he never expected. Perspective. Perspective changes everything. It has a way of revealing truths that emotions once hid. The man who believed he had endless time suddenly realizes that opportunities don't wait forever. The woman he assumed would always be there is no longer standing in the same place, hoping he'll change. She's growing. She's healing. She's discovering a version of herself that doesn't need constant reassurance to know her worth. That realization can shake even the strongest ego. For the first time, he begins to understand that your love was never guaranteed. It was a gift. And like every gift, it had to be appreciated while it was still in his hands. People often say, if he loves you, he'll come back. But real life is more complicated than that. Love alone doesn't guarantee action. Fear can stop action. Pride can stop action. Shame can stop action. A man may genuinely care and still hesitate because he doesn't know if he's welcome anymore. He wonders if too much damage has already been done. He wonders if you've already closed the chapter he secretly keeps rereading. That's why the strongest emotions are often hidden behind the strongest walls. The question isn't always whether he feels something. The question is whether he's willing to become the kind of man who can act on those feelings. Because love without courage remains silent. And silence has ended more relationships than hatred ever could. Many people spend years waiting for words that never come. They wait for apologies. They wait for explanations. They wait for closure. But here's a truth that can set you free. Closure isn't always something another person gives you. Sometimes closure is the moment you stop needing them to explain what their actions have already shown. If someone repeatedly chooses distance over communication, believe the choice they're making. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to become bitter. But you also don't have to pause your life while hoping they'll someday find the courage they refuse to use today. Your future deserves more than someone else's uncertainty. That doesn't mean his feelings aren't real. It means your life is real too. Too many people lose years waiting for someone to become emotionally available while ignoring the opportunities standing right in front of them. Don't make that mistake. Keep moving. Keep becoming. Keep growing into someone whose happiness doesn't depend on another person's confusion. Ironically, that's when everything begins to change. Because confidence has a magnetic quality, not loud confidence, not arrogance, real confidence, the kind that doesn't chase approval, the kind that walks into a room without needing everyone to notice, the kind that smiles because peace has replaced desperation. Men notice that, maybe not immediately, but eventually, because peace is attractive, strength is attractive, self-respect is attractive. When a woman stops trying to convince the world of her value, the world often begins recognizing it on its own. That's why disappearing to heal is never losing. It's investing. Every day you spend rebuilding yourself becomes something no one can ever take away. New knowledge, greater wisdom, stronger boundaries, deeper confidence, a calmer heart. Meanwhile, if his heart still belongs to you, your transformation won't go unnoticed. He'll hear about your growth. He'll see your confidence. He'll notice that your smile no longer depends on his attention. And suddenly, something inside him begins asking difficult questions. Why does she seem happier? Why didn't I realize her value sooner? Why do I feel like I'm the one being left behind? That's when reality replaces assumption. For a long time, he believed you'd always be available. Now he realizes you were never meant to wait forever. Time humbles everyone. It teaches lessons pride refuses to learn. It reminds us that every decision has consequences. Some opportunities return, others don't. The hardest lesson many people learn is that being missed doesn't always mean being welcomed back. Sometimes people return after you've already healed. Not because your love disappeared, because your self-respect finally arrived. And once you've experienced the peace that comes from knowing your own worth, you stop accepting half-hearted effort. You stop confusing attention with commitment. You stop mistaking mixed signals for genuine love. You begin expecting consistency. Because consistency is where trust grows. Anyone can be affectionate when everything is easy. Character reveals itself when life becomes difficult, when misunderstandings happen, when disagreements appear, when distance tests patience. That's where mature love separates itself from temporary emotion. A mature man doesn't simply feel love, he protects it. He communicates, he takes responsibility, he apologizes when necessary. He chooses solutions instead of excuses. If a man still loves you but refuses to grow, his feelings alone cannot build the future you deserve. Love without growth eventually becomes frustration. Love without communication becomes confusion. Love without action becomes a memory. Never forget that feelings matter, but choices reveal priorities. Every day, people vote for what matters most through their actions. Not their promises, not their intentions, their actions. If he consistently chooses silence when honesty is needed, distance when effort is required, and pride when humility could save the relationship, those choices tell a story. Listen carefully, because actions always speak with greater honesty than emotions hiding beneath the surface. At the same time, don't become cynical. Don't convince yourself that every cold man secretly loves you. Sometimes coldness is exactly what it appears to be. Sometimes people truly have moved on. The wisdom comes from refusing to force a fantasy where reality says otherwise. That's why your focus should never be decoding every signal. Your focus should be becoming someone who recognizes healthy love when it appears. Healthy love doesn't leave you constantly guessing. It doesn't make you question your value every week. It doesn't force you to earn basic respect. Healthy love brings clarity. It brings emotional safety. It brings honesty. And when two emotionally mature people meet, they don't spend all their energy wondering where they stand. They know, because genuine love isn't built on confusion. It's built on trust. So if he acts cold, but his heart still belongs to you, time will eventually reveal the truth. Not because you'll chase it, not because you'll force it, but because truth has a remarkable habit of finding its way into the light. And when that day comes, you'll have a decision to make. Not whether he'll choose you, whether the person you've become can still choose him. By the time that moment arrives, you'll realize something that once seemed impossible. The question that used to consume your mind, does he still love me, is no longer the most important question. A better question has quietly taken its place. Does this relationship deserve the woman I've become? That's what growth does. It changes your standards before it changes your circumstances. When you begin to value your peace, you stop accepting emotional chaos as proof of passion. You stop believing that love should constantly leave you anxious, exhausted, and uncertain. You begin understanding that the healthiest relationships don't steal your confidence. They strengthen it. If he truly carries you in his heart, then eventually he will face a choice. He can continue protecting his pride, or he can protect the relationship, because he cannot do both forever. Sooner or later, every man discovers that pride has a cost. It costs conversations that never happen. It costs apologies that never get spoken. It costs opportunities that never return. And sometimes it costs the very person he thought would always be there. Life has a way of teaching lessons that no advice ever could. Sometimes losing someone's presence is the only thing that reveals their true value. That's why regret is such a powerful emotion. Regret isn't just sadness. It's the painful realization that you had something extraordinary while your attention was somewhere else. Many people spend years searching for the very qualities they once ignored: loyalty, kindness, patience, understanding, emotional safety. These things seem ordinary until they're gone. Then suddenly, they become priceless. A man who still loves you may replay old conversations in his mind, wishing he had answered differently. He may remember arguments and realize they were never really about winning. They were about understanding. He may finally recognize that your requests weren't demands. They were invitations to build something stronger together. Wisdom often arrives after experience. Unfortunately, experience doesn't always give second chances. That's why timing matters, growth matters, humility matters. A relationship survives not because two people never make mistakes, but because they're both willing to learn from them. Love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about becoming someone capable of protecting something imperfect with honesty, patience, and commitment. And that's where many people get confused. They spend all their energy asking whether love still exists, instead of asking whether the foundation is healthy enough to support it. Love without trust becomes exhausting. Love without respect becomes painful. Love without communication becomes lonely. Those things cannot be replaced by feelings alone. Feelings may begin a relationship. Character is what sustains it. If his heart still belongs to you, his character will eventually have to meet his emotions. Otherwise, nothing changes. The same pride creates the same distance. The same silence creates the same confusion. The same fear creates the same ending. Real transformation isn't saying, "I miss you." Real transformation is becoming someone who no longer repeats the mistakes that caused the separation. That's what maturity looks like. Not bigger promises, better habits. Because habits reveal who someone truly is. Anyone can speak beautifully for one conversation. Consistency is what proves sincerity. And here's something you should always remember. Never allow someone's delayed realization of your value to become the reason you forget your own. If they finally recognize what you meant to them, that's meaningful. But it should never erase the boundaries you built while healing. Forgiveness is powerful. Blind trust is not. Second chances can create beautiful stories, but only when both people have genuinely changed. Otherwise, history simply repeats itself with different words. As you continue moving forward, you'll notice something remarkable. Your happiness becomes quieter. You laugh more easily. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You stop wondering who viewed your story. You stop analyzing every small interaction. Not because you stopped believing in love, because you finally started believing in yourself. That's the freedom so many people spend years searching for, the freedom to wake up without emotional dependence, the freedom to smile without someone else's approval, the freedom to know that whether someone stays or leaves, your value remains exactly the same. When you reach that place, your energy changes. People notice, friends notice, strangers notice, and yes, sometimes the very person who once acted cold notices too. They see confidence where insecurity once lived. They see peace where anxiety once existed. They see strength where they expected weakness. And suddenly, they understand something they overlooked before. They didn't lose your attention. They risked losing someone genuinely rare. But by then, Everything depends on what they've done with the time apart. Did they grow? Did they become more honest? Did they learn to communicate? Did they replace excuses with responsibility? Did they choose humility over pride? Those answers matter far more than emotional words ever will, because lasting love is never built on temporary emotion. It's built on daily decisions: the decision to listen, the decision to respect, the decision to stay loyal, the decision to communicate even when it's uncomfortable, the decision to protect the relationship instead of protecting the ego. That's what creates something that lasts. And if that man truly belongs in your future, he won't simply return with memories. He'll return with maturity. He won't just tell you he loves you. He'll show you through consistency. He won't expect you to ignore the past. He'll work patiently to rebuild trust. That's what real love looks like. Not perfection progress, not empty promises. Steady effort, not dramatic words, reliable actions. So if he acts cold today, don't let it define your tomorrow. His silence is his responsibility. Your growth is yours. His choices belong to him. Your peace belongs to you. Never sacrifice your confidence trying to earn a love that requires you to abandon yourself. The right relationship will never ask you to become smaller just to make someone else comfortable. It will inspire you to become stronger, wiser, kinder, and more secure. Remember this every single day. Your worth was never determined by how quickly someone recognized it. Your value never depended on another person's ability to express their feelings. You were valuable before they met you. You remained valuable while they doubted you. And you'll still be valuable no matter what choice they make next. So keep your head high. Protect your peace. Honor your standards. Choose growth over desperation. Choose self-respect over chasing. Choose faith over fear. Because the greatest victory isn't making someone realize they still love you. The greatest victory is becoming someone who never forgets to love and respect themselves first. And when you do that, you no longer fear whether someone's heart still belongs to you. Because you finally learned that the most important heart you'll ever be responsible for is your own.